the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
The series of articles that won the Chattanooga Times for Press, the Pulitzer Prize, called The Poverty Puzzle, has a lot to say about poverty, obviously, and particularly women who are among those impoverished. They are often women who are divorced or married and have children and dependents and one or two part-time jobs, and they're paying high rents and they just simply cannot get ahead. So thinking about these and thinking about her background, Stefanie Crowe is here to tell us about women and entrepreneurship and how it is that women, especially those with disadvantaged circumstances, can raise themselves up and possibly to the position where they are owners and not just employees of others who are owners, right? And that's what employees are. Employees are servants of masters. They are subject to their employers, and they don't have profit. An employee never has profit. He has only wages, which are the payment equal to his worth. The owner is the party who has the profit, and that is what we want to talk about, is how, if you're a woman, especially if you're a woman, or if you know, you, my listener, my guy listener, know a woman in distress, how it is that she might raise herself up to be in a more advantaged position over time. It requires a long-term perspective. It requires also, I'd like to suggest, a view about serving other people, because that's what every entrepreneur does, is serve other people. All the people outside your window right now, as you're looking out the window, they're all in their cars traveling left and right. All of them are doing something to help somebody else. It's either a family obligation or a work-connected duty or chore that takes them out on the road. So the human activity, the hum of human industry and commerce that you're seeing at your window is a picture of people serving other people. And that's what capitalism is all about. That's what entrepreneurism is all about. Stefanie Crowe, when she was a girl in a military family, found that her mom had really requirements upon her that she finally came to realize. Her dad, a good man, but not providing perhaps as much as was needful. And so Stefanie learned from her mother about entrepreneurship, and she is as she says, she is a reformed banker, a former banker. She's married. She and her husband Chip Crowe have two daughters, ages 10 and 13, each living there in North Chattanooga with a strong interest in service, in businesses, in entrepreneurship, and the exciting prospects that everybody can have. You, my listener, and everybody else can have in service to others. Stefanie, tell my listener about your childhood in a military family.
Childhood, a comfortable childhood in the military with a father who became ultimately a commanding officer and had a tenure in Vietnam. Just hardworking, dedicated, spent several years abroad away from his family. You know, military families have tremendous sacrifices around both the servants of the military and the families. And what we found was the military downsized post-Vietnam, late 70s, early 80s. My dad, after well over a decade of service, 2 mid-air collisions, one in which he was a sole survivor, came out in just a terrible national economy, high interest rates, and had a very tough time finding equivalent work to support the family. And I remember him pumping gas and emptying out waste baskets. And my mother, who gave up her college education to be the dutiful military wife, was really at a loss with 3 children, one with chronic asthma, no health care. We had lost all those military benefits and privileges. And here we were, this, heart and soul of the American family, doing all the right things to serve the country, very much in an economic vulnerable place. And right now I want to say that kudos to UTC for their Veterans Entrepreneurship Program. Part of my passion around entrepreneurship, especially focusing on veterans, is helping them translate amazing leadership skills that they develop in service of the country into the capitalist society. That is such a powerful thing. And the more people that can support our veterans in learning the skills of entrepreneurship, I just think the stronger we'll be as an economy. So I jumped into banking. I saw, economic vulnerability. I was the first out of 3 kids. I went to work as soon as I could. I put myself through college. just scrapped every nickel and dime. I got out of college and realized that even with a great education, I had no financial training. And people still say that today. I'm 25 years out of college. People say that our education system doesn't focus on giving kids just fundamental financial education. And so you can come out with a graduate degree, a practicing attorney, and not really know how to manage your finances well. And so 25 years in banking, I got started in a trust department. I landed there as an assistant, just a very basic job, but I fell in love with how money works. And one of the biggest gifts was going back to school, working on my MBA, going for any training the bank would provide, and then also obviously watching and learning from my multimillionaire clients that really developed wealth through just so many different venues, owning their own companies, investing in the markets, investing in small local companies. I learned from the best, and I want to share those lessons with people that start out at any level, and sometimes that means women who are the most vulnerable.
Well, these women who are in poverty have dependents, and they have jobs, and there are all kinds of things they can't get to, they can't care for, their cars, their houses, their finances, they can't really save. How do they get ahead? How do they do something beyond just being employed? They don't have enough mental turnaround room.
Oh my gosh, David, it takes a community. So I want to call out my friend Michael Walton at Green Spaces, who actually focuses on inner city neighborhoods and finds out that the fact that these rental homes are so inefficient with utilities puts a huge drag on, again, our most vulnerable families. And so Michael's coming in to show how to better equip your house, to save on utility expenses. And he also pulls on partners to weave financial education. And what he likes to say is when some of his single female retirees who are on very fixed income, very modest living, when they're able to save even just $100 a month with lower utility bills, they take that money and they reinvest in their own community. They'll be able to buy more gas to be able to take somebody to the next doctor's appointment. What's happening is in some of our most impoverished communities, the more we can help, the more they reinforce each other and try to lift each other up. And that's just a wonderful phenomenon.
It sounds like you're talking about social capital. What is social capital, and how does it help people looking up to those above them or superior to them in capital? And what does it say also, that concept, what does that say to my listener who has people who are, you might say, beneath him in place, in standing, whom he can invest in or whom he can help?
So I love that you're saying this, because I feel like this is a term that's still pretty emerging, and we're giving it more and more definition. But I woke up after 25 years in the financial industry, working in traditional wealth management and banking, learned all the technicalities, like how do you make money? How do you run a business? It was about profits. And I woke up mid-career and realized that I was doing a wonderful job funneling my own personal, wealth building, but I wasn't necessarily savoring it. I wasn't feeling like I was necessarily making a difference. And so this next chapter of my life, I've been focusing on what you target social impact investing, like social capital, making investments in people, in activities and projects, in new businesses that have some wonderful social component that will strengthen your community. And it's not just doing good. I mean, it's a strong, wonderful, smart investment that will have more impact than just profit per se. And when you can make those kinds of investments, that will differentiate your community among, I'd say, cities across the nation. And I think, frankly, that's what makes Chattanooga special.
Well, my listener, if he's smart, is divesting national and thinking of investing local. Probably right now he's in his stage of liquefying himself, getting out of these his very vulnerable investments in the stock market and in the debt markets. Give more of an analysis. Stefanie Crowe, you're the co-founder of Jump Fund, and you're a wealth advisor at Stonebridge. What should he think of? How should he think in terms of local investing? What is you might say, the mental furniture he has to have in which he can sit comfortably and work and socialize in this investment room that we're describing here? What does he need to have to think better about long-term and local-centric investing? Or are all those just terms of art? Are those just sentimental ideas that really have no place in the investment mindset.
No, they're not sentimental ideas. And I do want to back up and say sometimes people need to start global, like women who are just getting comfortable with making investments. They're uncertain. It seems like guys are welcome into those investment conversations much more readily as a society. And women don't sit around the coffee table talking about how to invest money. So my wish is that men engage women more on the financial conversation. And sometimes for a woman, it means buying the stock of a national company where she frequents. Like I like to say, buy what you patronize. Like look at Target if you go to Target a lot, or things that you love. So women can start feeling like they're investing in a way that is directly connected with how they're spending their dollars as a consumer. And that's where I'm starting my kids, frankly. You like going to Disney? Maybe let's buy some Disney stock. It kind of makes it real. So that there is a place for that. But you're right. The Jump Fund for me in the last few years with a wonderful group of co-founders who are entrepreneurs in their own right was looking at how women were not getting capital to start businesses at the same rate as men. And it was a national thing, but we were also seeing it at a local level. And we wanted to get capital in the hands of high potential women that could scale high growth companies. And we're already on to Jump Fund 2 because the first fund deployed all the capital, even quicker than we anticipated. $2.5 million for the first fund with over 18 investments. And the funny thing was the guys in the space were not seeing deals from women. So the women launching these companies were not approaching these male angel investors. And our guy friends just said, we don't think you're going to have deal flow. And we just love to tell that story that this was a bit of social engineering. And when we got the money together and we put it out there, the women found us. And so, I like to say that we're our own startup. We saw a problem and a social need and we attacked it and we're doing well. Like it's not just investing in women as a feel good thing. Like these women are great investments. And now guys want in on the scene. Guys want to co-invest with us.
We'll talk about how your profit comes at some point. You can't do any of these things without a sense of a return. A return is ROI, return on investment. And while you may have high sentiments and grand feelings for women and so on, you do have to have a profit. How do the Jump Fund investors, the principals and others who tag along for the ride, how do they make their gain? What kind of patience do they have for these local women-started businesses? So
the Jump Fund is a unique space to invest in women, and the companies that we're investing in are going to scale and have big exits, hopefully within 5, 7, possibly 10 years. Some will not make it. I mean, that's the nature of the startup world. But you diversify, so you don't put all your eggs in one basket. You diversify, and the investors that are in this space, they're not putting their dollars to work that they need to, pay their bills. So you only have a portion of your overall profile invested in this kind of way because it's longer term commitment. It's not that liquid. Hopefully the returns will be larger than what you're going to see in shorter term investing. But there's another way to play, and there are local folks who are looking for capital to support, I'd say, Main Street businesses, the businesses that aren't going to necessarily have a major exit and won't necessarily have an IPO. And those are really important businesses. And so I'd like to bring out my friends at Launch that teach entrepreneur skills, especially for disadvantaged communities. They reach into inner city schools. I think they had kids from Howard in their program coming out with tremendous ideas. And these are just going to be valid, wonderful Main Street companies that employ people, push people out of poverty. They won't necessarily have the major exit, but those companies need investment too.
But venture capitalists in Chattanooga, I was told by Miller Wilburn, I think, they want a return of 6x. In other words, 600% return on if they put $100,000 in, and they want in the end, I don't know if he said minimum, but something in the range of 600,000 or more profit. That's a lot to ask for. What about grand ambitions on the side of your investors? Are they willing to take 1x or 2x? What is acceptable? What is unacceptable? And how patient are they long term for?
Sure. So anybody managing a fund would hesitate to say you're going to make this kind of money since it's such a high risk business and your money is locked up. 6x, gosh, that would be fabulous because your money is locked up longer term. You do expect more than market rates, so you are going to expect a bigger bang for your buck. But what I'm also finding is that the folks that jump funds attracting aren't just looking for 6x returns. They're actually looking to promote women in the C-suite. They want to get women on boards. They're looking for that social impact component. And so what I like to play on is let's make money and do good. Like it's almost like a multifaceted return, if that makes sense. And there's current trends around slow money. Foundations are not just making grants anymore, but they're looking at part of their portfolio to invest for social impact. And so
they can recycle their funds, right? So they can
yes.
increase their funds, have them put out and come back.
Yes.
Their endowment is larger, right?
And so when you talk about your guy audience, if they see a need, I like to say, think twice about whether you're just giving somebody a fish or if you're teaching them to fish. So my very first job in a trust department was very much teaching me to fish. I was making very moderate wages as an assistant, but I was working around high-level people. I had very high-level clients. I was gaining technical skills that would accelerate my earnings potential. I was acquiring stock in my company, stock options in my company. So I was thinking like an owner, and then ultimately learning how to, invest like the pros. And that experience teed me up at this stage in life to take a much more entrepreneurial track. I unplugged from a corporate setting to pursue my own vision, things I had been kind of dreaming and wishing. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without the financial foundation of my early years. So I like to talk to folks who want to have entrepreneurial vision. Think like an owner.
This is David Tulis, and you're talking with Stefanie Crowe. Caller, what's on your mind?
I don't sound hunky-dory, Stefanie, but we know the reality is banks hate to lend money. And it's especially with startup businesses, especially nowadays. And then we get into a situation of fractional reserve banking and really just having a central bank where there's not really a lot of competition out there. So how does one overcome the idea of, I hate to call it this, but a Marxist banking system whereby, entrepreneurs starting a business or having, and I've seen this in many years.
What's your question?
Women, they come to the bank with an idea. What's your collateral? I don't have any. Well, we can't lend you any money because the bank wants zero risk.
So
the bank doesn't want to risk anything. If the bank loses money, the feds will refund them, or they'll get it through the Federal Reserve, or they'll steal your property. The banking is the only business I know with zero risk, where they create money from thin air, from nothing. There's nothing in reserve. It's all evidence of debt. And they require zero risk on their part.
So this is a wonderful opportunity.
How's that fair?
I love your...
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I love this. I love this point. And banking definitely has been decimated. I came out of B of A ahead of the financial crisis. The stock that was in my 401k went from $55 a share to $5 a share. A 90% drop in my, investment in that specific entity. Fortunately, at that point in time, I just felt it was sheer luck. But I landed in a startup bank, freshly capitalized. So in the midst of the financial crisis, I was in a brand new, well-capitalized bank that was lending money when a lot of the competitors couldn't. And so I saw firsthand the frustration of wonderful people with valid companies navigating a crisis, needing even more flexibility. The challenge at that time was the compliance, the regulations became even more heightened on banks. So at the point in time when banks might have needed more room to navigate, the regulation world, the compliance world became even more onerous. So I've got to say that there were many parties that led to the pain. Today, I'm working with financial institutions to challenge them on this. Can we create a pool that will allow us to underwrite very small businesses that don't have a lot of capital? And Tennessee Valley Federal Credit Union is actually doing something along these lines. Very small micro loans. They have a good number of women coming through their program. You've got to have some basic training, and they're making $25,000 to $50,000 loans. Very competitive pricing and structure, but it's unconventional. It's not the way a bank would normally underwrite. So I feel like there are some some partners that are looking for creative options to solve for this.
Don't forget, this is David Tulis, and credit unions are better than banks. They're different than banks, though they operate on the same fractional reserve principle. We're talking with Stefanie Crowe. She is the co-founder of Jump Fund, and we're exploring how capitalism and entrepreneurship can help women, especially those identified in the award-winning Times Free Press series on the poverty puzzle. which said that women are the largest group of poor, especially those with who have no men in the house and who have dependents, children. In other words, they're that is a very large indicator for poverty. How can they improve themselves and improve their lots with their families? And we appreciate your tuning into our program. We argue for local economy and the free market. We'll be talking some more with Stefanie Crowe. And the question I want to ask you, Stefanie, to think about, and you, my listener, do give us a call on the other side of some very important announcements. And it's this: is there a way of measuring wealth apart from dollar-denominated numbers? And I'd like to suggest that there are, and she's already suggested that that's already what's happening in Chattanooga. There are investors willing to invest in 6x return on investment, maybe not as hot. Maybe they'll accept 3 if these other things come into play. What are those other things? How are they evaluated? How are they important? That is the question we're asking here on the David Tulis Show at Nooga Radio 92.7. And now, from some important message. Thanks, Stefanie.
Thanks, David.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.